Please don't go near me.
This is a CBS News special report. From CBS News headquarters in New York, here is Dan Rather.
Good evening. We go directly to Midland, Texas, where the long hours of waiting and hoping, the hours of tension, may be almost over. There's activity around the hole where little Jessica McClure has been stuck down an old dry well for more than 48 hours. There are indications a bucket was sent down in the relief hole just a few moments ago, and the indication was that Jessica McClure may be pulled out of the shaft at any time. Bruce Hall is standing by live on the scene. Bruce, this happened once before today, and they weren't able to get the little girl out. What's the outlook at the moment?
Well, the outlook at the moment is much better, Dan, because we've had two doctors who have just moved right in over the hole. They have blankets in their hands. One of them has what appears to be medical supplies. They're leaning over the hole, looking down into it. Another person is on a phone right over the hole, talking to, we believe, a doctor who is down in the shaft itself. It appears, finally, 58 hours after this incident occurred, that we may be ready to bring Jessica McClure out of the hole.
The operative word for the moment is may, of course, since it looked like, to repeat for emphasis, at one point much earlier in the day that they might be able to do it, but it turned out that Jessica McClure, the 18-month-old child's foot, was caught in a crevice and they just couldn't get her out. By the way, if you're wondering as we wait here now, the operation at one time considered sending a man who was born without a collarbone, who volunteered to go down in the hole and try to pull the little girl out. They thought about that. They brought him to the hole opening and then decided not to try that. What's happened since then is a rather complicated operation, which let's look and listen now to see whether it succeeds.
All right, Dan, we're bringing some ropes out from the hole. There appears to be a doctor who is right on the edge of the hole. There are two doctors on the edge of the hole. We have a number of things which are getting ready to be brought out of the shaft. People are lining the way to the ambulance here. And as you said, we've been through this before, but once again, it really appears we're about there this time. They brought a light out of the shaft just a few seconds ago and are holding it right next to it.
Actually, we can see that light. Oxygen has been pumped down to the girl, and rescue workers have been laboring under floodlights, using hot air blowers to keep her warm down there. Midland is a very warm place, but down that far underground for that long, they were worried about whether she had enough heat, and they began to pump some down.
They really were worried because it is very warm in the day, as you said, but at night it gets quite chilly here, and they were worried about the temperatures as they dropped, particularly where she was, down about 20 feet.
The searchers widened the hole earlier this evening with a 1,000-pound, what we'll call a water knife, a machine that exerts force up to 35,000 pounds per square inch through a high-pressure nozzle. The purpose of that was to widen the relief hole, the rescue hole, out so they could get the little girl through that from
and
the... Yes, go ahead, Bruce.
Also, they wanted to be able to see if they could help anyway in getting her foot, which was caught in a crevice, see if they could maybe knock some of the rocks loose from right around that and maybe loosen that hole, because they're really concerned about that foot and the leg which is caught in this crevice, because they're concerned that the blood may not be flowing properly there. And that is one of the reasons we've had doctors go down quite several times in the last hour.
You're watching and listening to CBS News live coverage of the scene in Midland, Texas, where it is expected that very shortly we may, italicize the word may, see Jessica McClure come up to the surface. The little girl is alive. She's been down for 58 hours without food or water. For one thing, they elected not to give her food or water because the physicians recommended that just in case she had any injuries, and they didn't want to do it in case she needed any surgery. No indication that she would, just a precautionary step. Bruce, what about the report that a tube of lubricating jelly, petroleum jelly, apparently intended to help make Jessica slippery enough to squeeze out of her jam, was sent down? along with that backboard that the paramedics said would be used to immobilize and raise the girl up to the surface.
Well, the medical technicians here are willing and ready to try anything. That is just one of the things they wanted to have on hand and see if that would work, because sometimes that can help you get through these small areas. Because although she fell into this hole and she was sort of standing when she fell, they were trying to bring her out from the side, and they needed a much bigger hole than the 8 to 9 inches in the pipe of where she fell in. So they had to use anything that they could. Also, see if that would help in freeing that leg or that foot that was caught in the crevice.
The little girl has been trapped 22 feet below ground. This particular piece of pipe, only a little over 8 inches wide, was in an area of grass and some overgrown bamboo, and the toddler just went out and through a freakish accident fell into that hole.
Here we go.
And
here we go.
Do you see her, Bruce?
No, I thought we did, but they are calling immediately for the big air hose. They want to put the air hose back into the shaft here. We thought when they first started moving, we saw something come out of the hole, but apparently it was connected with the air hose and not little Jessica.
Well, we were saying that she fell into this incredibly small in terms of diameter of the pipe. She eventually wound up 22 feet below ground. This pipe had been in the ground for a very long time, only 8 inches across, grown up with bamboo shoots and grass, and she just toddled over to it and just fell into it, and she couldn't even gotten down through the pipe if it hadn't been for the accident that her hands went immediately above her head, and that narrowed her body enough that she just fell right down that chute. And it's been an incredibly difficult, excruciating job of trying to cut through very hard, solid rock with all kinds of bits and drill bits and this water knife that was used today to get a relief hole dug off to the side and get in without letting the little girl slip any deeper down into the pipe, and also to make sure that there was no movement of the pipe in which she was trapped. How her foot, one foot, got caught in a crevice down there is not yet clear, but that's what's prevented them from getting her out once they got the relief hole completed to the side. And they've been spent a lot of hours lately trying to very carefully widen that hole. They've apparently done so. They sent a paramedic down. Then a few minutes ago, there were indications that they were very slowly, very carefully going to be in the process of bringing her up to the surface, and that's where we stand right now. Unclear, Bruce, how long this main cable going down the whole operation will take. That is the main cable they've been using during the day. There is a pallet with the paramedic down there, and the idea of that pallet is to put the little girl on the pallet and then pull her out on that pallet with this main cable.
That is the way they've been bringing everyone up from this large shaft, and we don't know yet whether the next person coming up is going to be one of the rescue personnel or the medical doctors, or whether they're going to bring her up first. But we should see some movement momentarily here in regard to this large crane and see something coming out of the hole. I'm looking for the mother and father, who we've seen a number of times around here today. They're hidden from view at the moment because it was a tremendous disappointment to them earlier today when they thought little Jessica was going to be brought out, and they were standing around in such a state of anticipation as any parent would be for an 18-month-old toddler who has been trapped in this well. But at the moment, they have retired to the sideline. They're not over by the ambulance where they were earlier, and we think that they're going to try to stay out of view until they know for certain, know absolutely, that this time that they're going to bring up the little girl. So they will wait until they know.
For our viewers, the men in green are physicians. Those doctors are right at the top of the hole, as Bruce has pointed out, hoping and praying like everyone else that the toddler, the 18-month-old Jessica McClure, will be coming up soon. The ambulance is standing by to take her to a hospital, which is only 5 minutes away. it's worth reminding ourselves that an 18-month-old child, while the child can understand some things and speaks a little, that it's been practically impossible to communicate with her in any meaningful way other than to try to reassure her, as these long 58 hours now have gone by, that she has been consistently described as remarkably in good spirits while she's been down there, except especially during the time when the jackhammers would start. And the jackhammers that were used for a while to try to knock through the rock to dig the relief hole clearly and understandably frightened her. And those were the periods in which the child was described as screaming. And at one point, the physicians advised them to stop using the jackhammers until little Jessica McClure could settle down a bit. But they haven't used the jackhammers in some hours. And one of the paramedics who went down some time ago and actually touched the girl said, and I quote, "She seems to be pretty alert. Looks like her upper body is functioning." And the paramedic, when he came back up, said that as best he could determine that the child was all right. They are, of course, concerned about the fact that her foot was wedged in that crevice for such a long period of time.
And they have doctors now standing by in the emergency room at Midland Memorial Hospital, as you said, just a few minutes away from here, because she will immediately be taken to the hospital and checked thoroughly. They expect that she may have suffered some difficulties from being under there, particularly to things like hearing. They think from the use of the jackhammer that she may have problems with hearing. You have to remember, this child at the moment is believed to have on only a pair of diapers. And with the extreme changes we've had in the temperatures and the weather, quite warm during the day, quite chilly in the evening, she probably has suffered quite a bit from the weather. Even though the physicians, every one of them who've been down there, say it is still quite remarkable what this girl has gone through and how well she is reacting. It is hard sometimes to have a very extensive discussion with an 18-month-old, but they say from their standpoint that it is very remarkable the condition that she is in, and they're very encouraged. But she is expected, when she comes out, to spend several days at the hospital while she is thoroughly checked.
And her cries and breathing have been monitored with a microphone practically throughout the ordeal. They've had a microphone down so they could listen to her cries and her breathing. And at one point, the doctors at the scene emphasized they took what crying there had been out of Jessica as a good sign, because it meant to them it was reassurance that the child was breathing and breathing well. Clearly, the child could not cry very much if she were not breathing and breathing well. This is CBS News live coverage of the scene from Midland, Texas. Dan Rather with Bruce Hall, as with the doctors, the men in green that you see there in your picture, continued to eagerly and anxiously await the next development, which we believe, hope and pray, will be Jessica McClure coming up and out of ground. This story is receiving tremendous worldwide play in newspapers and radio and television stations, Bruce. Hong Kong, both English and Chinese language stations are carrying reports on the girl. The South China, Mainland China Morning Post, an English language newspaper, ran a story that covered almost a quarter of a page, we're told. Now, that the South China Morning Post is out of Hong Kong, not out of Mainland China, but the story is being covered by newspapers on Mainland China. The story has received display in newspapers in West Germany, the Netherlands, throughout Brazil. It's a story that has caught people's attention, taken people's interest, not only in this country, but also abroad. We had some visitors from the Soviet Union in our studio earlier. Yes, Bruce?
Dan, it looks like they're getting ready to bring something up from the hole. I can't tell. They're tightening the slack on the cable, and people are moving in very, very close to the hole. Two doctors are right on the edge as they tighten the slack a little bit. A moment ago, you could see what appeared to be smiles on a couple of the people there. One person held a thumbs up, but we have no idea whether that was a signal to the man on the crane or whether he was giving some other signal. There are about 4, 5, 6 people right over the rim of the shaft. leaning over so that you can barely see their heads now. They're peering right down into the shaft. The cable itself is relatively tight. It has been lifted several feet, and then they stopped at this time.
Bruce, the man in the orange hat, what's called in Texas a gimme cap, that orange cap right in the middle, is controlling the cable operations. He's controlling somewhat with hand movements. Man in the orange and white cap with the white mule gloves on.
Yes, I can see him now. You have a different view than I have a little bit there, and I see him, and he is, as you said, giving instructions to the crane operator, as they were going to be very, very careful about this. This is still a very dangerous procedure, as you bring up this child the last few feet, bring her back to the surface. It is a time they want to be very careful with it. They do not want anything to go wrong here, because it's been an exhausting 58 hours, and they want to make certain that when they bring her up, that she is all right and there's no difficulties here. Here she comes. There's clapping.
Live and direct from Midland, Texas, Jessica McClure is up. She's alive. What a fighter.
Dan, we can barely see her from here, but they're holding her up. They're just so excited right around there. People are clapping. It's just a tremendous sense of excitement and relief here. Momentarily, they'll be making their way right toward us here as they prepare to take her to the hospital. Here she comes, right getting ready to go to the hospital. Dan, I don't know if you could see her as she came by us. Her head was bandaged. Her hands were black from the dirt. Looked like she had been wrapped in a couple of blankets. Appeared to have a little movement in the face, and appeared to be in pretty good shape. But she has been pretty well wrapped in blankets and is now off to Midland Memorial Hospital, where she'll probably be staying for several days now while she can be thoroughly checked out.
All right, and what a day, Bruce, and what a terrific job, all those people who worked for those 58 hours in Midland, which has been a rather economically depressed area, to say the least, over the last year and a half. It, in many ways, is the oil and gas drilling capital of the world, which turned out to be fortuitous for Jessica McClure, because they had the equipment, they had the people with the know-how. Midland and that whole area known, among other things, for oil and gas drilling, pickup trucks, gimme caps, and can-do attitude. And that, with the community spirit that they displayed there, and they just would not give up, keep it going. Bruce, let's take a look again as little Jessica McClure came out of that well 22 feet down, where she had been for some 58 hours. This was the scene just moments ago as we carried it live here on CBS, as she was brought up and out of the hole. The paramedic takes off his gear. What they had been doing with that cable all that while was very, very carefully pulling Jessica up, ever so delicately.
And there's just such a tremendous relief here. There's been such an outpouring of love and everything here as this community has really come together. And they're celebrating here, so happy that Jessica is up, out, and now on the way to the hospital. And it's a great sense of relief here, Dan.
Time for relief, great relief, time for joy, and time for a salute to the heroes. This is Dan Rather with Bruce Hall, CBS News.
This has been a CBS News special report.
We now resume Beauty and the Beast at the point of interruption.